Here is a question almost nobody asks when they can't sleep. What if the problem isn't that your brain won't let you sleep? What if the problem is that the world you live in was built for a brain that doesn't exist anymore? We spend billions of dollars every year on sleep aids, prescription medications, white noise machines, weighted blankets, blackout curtains, and cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. We track our sleep with devices. We optimize our sleep environments. We agonize over our sleep scores. And yet, as a civilization, we have never slept worse. The rates of chronic insomnia continue to climb. Sleep deprivation has become so normalized that we treat it as a badge of productivity. We have built an entire cultural identity around being exhausted, and almost no one is asking the most obvious question. What did humans do before any of this? What did sleep actually look like for the 300,000 years before the Industrial Revolution invented the concept of bedtime? The answer is going to change how you understand your brain, your nights, and your relationship with rest in a way that no sleep supplement ever could. Let's begin with the architecture of the ancient night, because to understand your brain, you first have to understand the world it was built for. For nearly the entirety of human history, the transition from day to night was absolute. When the sun went down, the world became genuinely dark, not inconveniently dim. Genuinely, completely dark. The kind of darkness that made moving around dangerous, that made finding food impossible, that made every sound in the black unknown a potential predator. Our ancestors' eyes, like yours, were not adapted for darkness. Leopards, hyenas, and other nocturnal hunters could see perfectly in conditions that left humans blind. The discovery of controlled fire, evidenced as far back as 1 million years ago at Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, changed this fundamentally. Fire didn't just provide warmth and protection. It created a boundary between the world of day and the world of night. Inside the circle of firelight, you were safe. Outside it, you were prey. And that boundary wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The fire told your nervous system that the threat was held at bay, that for these next few hours you could breathe. Over thousands of generations, the human brain was deeply conditioned to associate firelight with safety and darkness with the transition to a different mode of consciousness. Not a dangerous mode, a quieter one, a slower one, the mode your brain was designed to inhabit for roughly half of every 24-hour cycle. Now let's talk about what happened to sleep inside that world, because this is where the ancient brain inside you becomes visible. In 2001, historian and sleep researcher Roger E. Kirch released research that had taken him 16 years to compile. He had found over 500 historical references across centuries of human record, all pointing to the same fundamental truth about how human beings slept before the industrial age. Prayer books from the 1400s, court testimonies, personal diaries, medical guidance from the 16th century, even the text of Homer's Odyssey. All of them referred to first sleep and second sleep as completely ordinary and unremarkable aspects of nightly life. Before artificial light standardized the consolidated 8-hour sleep block, human beings slept in 2 distinct phases. First sleep began shortly after dark, lasted approximately 4 hours, and was followed by a natural period of wakefulness, lasting 1 to 2 hours. Second sleep then carried people through until dawn. The interval between the 2 sleep phases was not treated as a problem. It was treated as a natural part of the night, as ordinary as sunrise. People in medieval Europe used this time for prayer, for lovemaking, for visiting with neighbours, for interpreting their dreams, for quiet reflection. A physician's manual from the 1500s described this interval as the ideal time for intellectual work, calling it the period when the mind was most clear and the world most still. This was the biological rhythm of the human brain, not the 8-hour block, not the consolidated, uninterrupted sleep we now chase, the 2-phase, interrupted, reflective night. And it was confirmed in a laboratory. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health took a group of healthy volunteers and placed them in conditions of 14 hours of darkness per day for 1 month. He removed all artificial light. He did not suggest any particular sleep schedule. He simply restored something close to the light conditions our ancestors would have experienced. Within a few weeks, every single participant independently settled into the same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. No one coached them. No one told them what to do. Their brains simply remembered a rhythm that had apparently been coded into human biology for millennia and suppressed by artificial light for barely 2 centuries. But the most significant finding wasn't the sleep pattern itself. It was what Ware measured during the wakeful interval between sleep phases. The participants' brains were producing elevated levels of prolactin, the hormone associated with deep relaxation, meditative states, and profound calm. They described the experience as unlike any ordinary waking state, dreamy but conscious, peaceful without being drowsy, reflective, present. This was not insomnia. This was an entirely separate state of human consciousness, one that existed for every human being who ever lived, until we turned on the lights. So here is the question you have to sit with. If your brain was built for this two-phase sleep architecture, what happens when you try to force it into a single, consolidated, 8-hour block in a brightly lit world? The answer is what we now call insomnia. Here is how the mechanics work. Your brain's circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that governs when you sleep and when you wake, is calibrated primarily by light. Specifically, it is calibrated by blue spectrum light, the same wavelength emitted by the sun during daylight hours. When blue light hits the specialized photoreceptors in your retina, those receptors send a direct signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain's hypothalamus, which then suppresses the release of melatonin. Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It is a timing signal. It is the hormone your brain releases to say, the sun has set. The world is dark. It is time to begin the transition toward rest. When you flood your eyes with blue light from screens, overhead lights, and LED bulbs for 7 to 8 hours after sunset, you are telling your brain that the sun has not set. You are delaying the melatonin signal. You are pushing your entire sleep architecture backward by hours. Research from the University of Colorado at Boulder demonstrated that just one weekend of camping with zero artificial light shifted participants' melatonin onset forward by a significant margin, with a full week of natural light exposure, producing a shift of approximately 2.6 hours. The brain responds to natural light conditions with remarkable speed. The ancient rhythm is not gone. It is simply suppressed beneath the artificial glow. But here is where the ancient brain piece becomes critical for understanding modern insomnia specifically. When you force a brain that is biologically built for two-phase sleep into a consolidated sleep schedule, and then wake it at 3 a.m. during what should be the watch interval, the brain does exactly what it is designed to do. It activates. It becomes alert. It enters that prolactin-rich, reflective state. The insomnia is not caused by your ancient brain waking up. It is caused by your modern brain's response to your ancient brain waking up. This is the distinction that changes everything. Your ancient brain is doing something extraordinary when it pulls you out of consolidated sleep. It is creating space for a biological process that your waking, screen-filled, cortisol-saturated day cannot provide. It is opening a window for deep reflection, for memory consolidation, for the slow, integrative mental processing that only happens in that specific state of consciousness. The cortisol spike, the racing thoughts, the catastrophizing about lost sleep, none of that is ancient. All of that is modern. All of that is a learned response to a natural biological event that our culture has mislabeled as a malfunction. When you wake in the middle of the night, the most important thing you can do is resist the impulse to reach for your phone or look at a clock. Both of these actions flood your retinas with light, halt melatonin production, and snap you out of the watch state before it can do what it was designed to do. Once you understand this, you can begin to work with your ancient brain instead of against it. Lie still. Let the darkness hold you. Notice that your body is physically calm, that your muscles are relaxed, that your breathing is slow, even if your mind feels active. That combination is not the same as anxious wakefulness. That is the watch. Your body is already doing the right thing. You simply have to stop interrupting it with panic. Let your mind move where it wants to move. Don't direct it. Don't discipline it. The watch state is characterized by a kind of gentle, associative thinking that the conscious, directed mind of daytime doesn't access. Ideas surface. Connections form. Emotions that had no room to breathe during the day find expression in the quiet. This is the state that people throughout history described as the best time for reflection, for prayer, for insight. You are not broken. You are ancient, and your ancient brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. There is a broader implication here that I want to leave you with because it matters for how you design your entire relationship with sleep going forward. The 8-hour consolidated sleep ideal was not derived from studying natural human biology. It was derived from studying industrialized humans, populations whose sleep architecture had already been distorted by artificial light. The standard was built on top of a dysfunction and then presented as normal. When you feel like you are failing at sleep because you cannot stay unconscious for 8 unbroken hours, you are measuring yourself against a standard that was never biologically natural in the first place. Your ancient brain is not failing. Your ancient brain is insisting on a truth that 2 centuries of artificial light have tried to bury. The night was never supposed to be one long block of unconsciousness. The night was supposed to have texture. It was supposed to have a threshold, a pause, a window of quiet in the middle. That window is not your enemy. It is your inheritance. Stop treating it like a symptom. Start treating it like what it actually is. The most intimate, most human conversation your biology has been trying to have with you every single night of your life.